everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1550 AM. Joining us today on this show, we have Greg Tanaka. As you know, our show explores themes of emerging tech trends, entrepreneurship, and what's cooking in the Silicon Valley. Greg, who will be joining us on the show today, is an avid entrepreneur. He's also a former council member of the Palo Alto City. And today we want to talk a little bit about the themes of AI, ML, talk about crypto, Web3, the regulatory scenario, and what to expect in this upcoming year. Greg, welcome to the Silicon Dreams. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about these topics. Besides serving on Palo Alto City Council for 8 years, I also ran for U.S. Congress. And one of the reasons why I ran for U.S. Congress was because the current, or not the current, but the previous congressperson was not very pro-crypto and a bit anti-AI. So that's one of the reasons why I ran. So these topics you bring up are ones that I'm very interested in.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of our audience members would also be interested in learning how these landscapes are going to be changing, especially now that we have a new president in the House. It's just the start of his term, and AI is exploding. Web3 has also seen an explosive movement with Bitcoin hitting new highs. And that being said, Greg, besides the really short intro that I gave about you, why don't you go ahead and introduce our audience members to you? Because you have done so many things, not just in the areas of Web3 and AI, but as an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a native Californian, live here in Palo Alto, and largely my focus has been on the tech side. I've always kind of dreamed about entrepreneurship. People like Steve Jobs and Wozniak were always kind of my idols. And I started programming when I was really young. I think I wrote my first program at 6, and then I won my first programming contest when I was 7. And so like I found programming to be like the ultimate video game. It's just incredibly interesting. And went off to Caltech down in Southern California and UC Berkeley. Did some work at Stanford as well. Yeah, I've kind of been here in the Bay Area ever since. Very focused on startups. I did a lot of works around GPUs. Like I designed the first commercially successful GPU. Did also not just engineering. I also did some marketing, product marketing, consulting, sales, corporate venture, lots of different things at big companies and small companies. High school, college. I wasn't a political science major. I didn't have a lot of aspirations around politics. And so I got into politics as more of an accident. So what happened was the mayor of Palo Alto at the time was trying to ban software development. He wanted to make it illegal to do programming in Palo Alto. And the reason why is because he felt that there was too much traffic and parking issues from the startup companies. So he wanted to drive out tech. And so Palo Alto has this Palo Alto is an old city. It's like 125 years old. And so 125 years ago, there wasn't, so there's allowed uses like laundromats, retail, stuff like that. But software development wasn't an allowed use because it just came around like, maybe 50 years ago. And so that's after Alto was created. And so she was trying to use the fact that because it's not allowed use, that he can basically ban it. And so, companies like HP that started here in Palo Alto, or Google or Meta, right? All these iconic companies that started here in Palo Alto, he felt he wanted to drive them out. And for me, I'm until then I was somewhat apolitical. I really wasn't that involved. But I'm running a software startup, and I actually believe that technology is one of those things that actually creates win-win situations. She calls that dangerous tech and wants to ban it, and it's like I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of odd. It seems like I like it. I think it helps like surface podcasts like this, right? Or it helps me learn things I didn't even know about. So I think it's actually a good thing. And so I think the anti-tech, anti-AI thing to me is just it's the one way that everyone can move up. All of humanity can be lifted up.
Absolutely. I feel that when things go to Congress, a lot of the times it's one extreme or the other. Of
Yeah.
course, with anything like AI, Web3, these are tools, just like science, just like any other tech.
Yeah.
It has the power to create, it also has the power to destroy, but you can't just go ahead and block it because it never happens, it keeps growing. And you have to put some guardrails around. But quite a few times I've seen that the Congress would lag in making regulations, and the Congress, as we know, the regulatory bodies, they move much slower than the technology. And then when they feel like, oh, it's getting out of hand, they just try to come and block it completely, which I feel is definitely not the way to go. Recommendation engines, besides their use in social media platforms, they also have a lot of uses when it comes to enterprise platform. So for example, I used to work for a US healthcare companies, and at the time, as part of the insurance companies, health insurance companies, we were also working on recommendation engines so that when people were enrolling, we were able to make better recommendations, whether it was on the web portal for self-service enrollment or whether it was for customer support where people would call in, because it's just impossible for any customer support agent also to just remember everything, all the plans that some major companies, like at that time I was working for Anthem, it called Elevance Health now, but they are like the largest Blue Cross Blue Shield providers. So it's just not humanly possible to remember all of this. But Greg, that's great because I did not know about this history of Palo Alto. And considering how we are surrounded by the Computer History Museum, how Palo
Yeah.
Alto is also known as a hub for the Silicon Valley, I was actually smiling when I heard about this bit that, hey, Palo Alto wanted to just like ban technology completely. So thank you
The
so much for sharing that. And
yeah.
I'm absolutely glad to be interviewing you today. So let me ask you this, right? I mean, obviously, we have had the power keeps changing hands. So we
Mhm.
had Biden in the House now. Now we have Trump. We have obviously seen Trump come up with some pro crypto measures. At the same time, obviously, with Elon Musk also being on the Department of Government Efficiency. I don't know how that's going to pan out, but
Sure.
there's a lot of buzz in the AI area as well. They also announced, and Trump hasn't even completed like 1 month at office. So all of this has been in the inaugural week. But he also announced half a trillion. That's actually a pretty big amount. So 500 billion worth of investments in AI in a
Yeah.
US. So let me ask you this, right? Like, how do you think? So, my first question is that over the next 4 years, what do you think is going to happen, especially in terms of regulatory affairs in the fields of both AI and Web3? How do you think they're going to grow, and what are some of the good things and possibly not so good things that you think may happen in the next 4 years under the current administration?
Sure. So, one of the reasons why I ran for Congress, U.S. Congress, was because of the anti-crypto stance. Some people view crypto as scammy, and there are parts of it that are very scammy. But I kind of view it as, so way back when, like 2000 years ago, the calendar, right? So a calendar is 365 days, 12 months, all that kind of stuff. It was political. It wasn't like it is today, where it's like 12 months and it's like the same every year. It was whatever the ruler at the time thought was good, right? So sometimes it'd be extra months, sometimes it'd be extra days, and the calendar would just change all of, and that's why historians have a really hard time knowing, when were people born, all that kind of stuff, because the calendar moved around so much. If you look at today's money supply, it's very much like that as well, right? It's political, right? Money is really meant to help facilitate trade, store value. If you need to tax people more, if you need to do transfer payments, if you need to do this or that, just do it. But the problem is that, like especially over the past few years, the amount of inflation that we've had, it is mind-boggling, right? You look at how much money we printed. You look at just go to any restaurant and you look at the prices now. It is so much higher. I strongly feel that instead of, just like a calendar where there are a lot of politics in the calendar, I think money supply should just be like the calendar. It should just be standardized. It shouldn't be for politics. If you need to tax people, if you need to do this or that, do it, but don't do it through the money supply. And so I think that, the policies, I think the person that they have in place, David Sachs, I've never met the guy, but I've watched All In and I've kind of followed him for some time. I think he's actually really informed about AI and crypto. And that's one of the big issues I found in general, and kind of like what you said, why regulation lags so much, and when they do it, it seems to be off. And it's largely because the people making the legislation don't really understand what's going on, right? The person I was running against, she's like 80 years old. I wasn't even sure
Just
she's
out of touch.
very out of touch, right? And so the people in place, like especially like David Sachs in terms of AI and crypto, he's the AI crypto czar. he knows what's going on, right? He's actually very well informed. So I'm very hopeful that in the next 4 years, we're going to see a lot of innovation in this area because I had a lot of friends in crypto. And because if you were in crypto over the past 4 years in the United States, it was like the kiss of death, right? I mean, you got debanked, you got like I had friends that decided to move to Dubai and other places because it was so anti-crypto here, unnecessarily so. And so we were pushing the best minds in the business, the most entrepreneurial, the people who were creating some of the biggest innovations to other countries. And what we want to do in this country, or what made America amazing, is that we're a land of immigrants. Some of the most amazing people immigrated to our country to make this country just top notch in terms of technology. And so I think the stance that we've had on crypto of driving scrappy entrepreneurs to other countries, it just to me it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. We want to support them, not drive them away.
Absolutely. And a lot of the folks dabbling in crypto, for example, are Gen Zers or millennials. So you are actually driving out the next generation talent outside of US. I think Web3 is one of those few domains that actually was responsible for driving people out of US because generally US is known as the center for innovating. And 10 years ago, all of the action in the Web3 space was happening in the United States. But then again, as you said, right, a lot of the times people don't understand it fully. And of course, there are scams, etc., with any new technology. In fact, people who have been around for a while now, they could remember how even the internet was a place for scam that perpetuated all the way to the stock market. So many stocks that just gained value because they had a website. Suddenly, with the bubble burst in 98, 99, 2000, all of these stocks came crashing and burning down. And the funny part is that for a couple of years after that, no VC wanted to entertain you if you mentioned the word internet in your pitch. But today, can we even imagine living without the internet? The Gen Alpha and Gen Beta, that those are being born, Gen Beta just started this year. These kids are not even going to know a world or imagine a world where the internet did not really exist. So that's how quickly technology is changing. So now, with obviously, we know that the current government, like Trump, he also signed an executive order where he said that he wants the federal government to have a reserve that's in crypto. Actually, I would love to ask a question to you on that point specifically. Obviously, that executive order was to show Trump's support for the crypto community. He has launched a meme coin as well, and there are other things in the EU. The EU did not talk about the meme coin, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of US owning a crypto reserve, do you think that is a good idea? Because a lot of the people, they also argue that when United States themselves, like having a crypto reserve for a country like El Salvador, where their currency actually deflates, so their currency value depreciates much higher than, even the crypto volatility that we can see, or countries like Argentina, it makes sense for them. However, for the United States, which is technically the issuer of the reserve currency of the world, it doesn't make sense. So let me ask you your opinion. Do you think that it makes sense for the government to really create it, or do you think it is like just a promise that was made to the crypto world, so that promise is being kept?
Well, I actually feel like in Palo Alto, by the way, I actually also advocated for that. So I advocated that Palo Alto get a crypto reserve. And this is back when I think crypto went down to like $20,000 or 16,000, I forgot what it was. And now it's like 100 something. So I think, and I know Elon and team on Doge are trying their darndest to try to cut the waste, but it is totally against politics, right? Politics, it's all about money. It's all about raising money. I mean, I'm running for Congress. I know a little bit about it, right? You got to raise a ton of money, right? I mean, you got to raise millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you're so beholden to large donors. And for me, I raised some money, but not even close to my opponents, right? And so I know what it means about money. And so as a result, politicians have every incentive to put the country into debt because they're basically buying the votes. They're using the taxpayer dollars to buy the votes, essentially. And as a result, the amount of inflation that we have, the devaluation of our currency is just astounding. Maybe not as bad as Argentina or El Salvador or some other countries, but it's still, it's like a thief in the night. That's the problem with inflation. You're basically stealing from people. And And inflation actually, the thing I hate about it most is that it hurts the poorest. So my dad never finished high school, so I didn't grow up very rich. Like people like my dad or people who are on the lower end of the social economic spectrum, they tend to have most of their wealth in cash. And so when there's a lot of versus wealthier people tend to have a lot of assets. Like Elon Musk, he has very little cash. 99.999% of his wealth is assets. So when you have incredible inflation, Elon Musk doesn't get poor. No, the people that get poor are guys like my dad, people who never finished high school, people who don't have a lot of assets. It's very perverse, inflation, and so but the politicians have every incentive to inflate, to just print money like crazy, to buy the votes. And so the reason why I like a crypto reserve is that I think we need it's like today if I told you, oh yeah, the president decided that there's going to be 380 days this year, you'd be like, that's totally crazy, that's ridiculous, right? Back 2,000 years ago during Roman time, Julius Caesar says, oh, I want to have extra months, so we're going to have July, right? That was okay because people just make up the calendar however they felt like it, right? The calendar was so screwed up back then that you know 2,000 years ago that was accepted. That was like, oh yeah, no big deal. New Emperor Augustus, he wants to have August as a month for him. There you go. The calendar they just screw with the calendar all the time for purely political reasons. And today, when the government decides to print $4 trillion, no biggie, right? We print another 10 trillion, no big deal. We'll just do it, right? But the thing about it is it hurts people like my dad, right? People who don't have a lot of assets. The poorest people of our country are the ones that get hurt. And I just from a humanitarian point of view, it makes no sense. It is crazy. In fact, what happens is it shifts the wealth from the poor people to the wealthy people. And to me, it's like, why do you want to beat on people who are down on the luck already? Why do you want to enrich the rich people? It doesn't make sense. So I think, to be honest, I think the government needs to get out of the money printing business. I think they need to move to it's done by algorithms versus politicians. It's like the calendar. The calendar is an algorithm. It's 30 days, 31, 30, 31, 30, right?
Okay.
Except for February 28, right? But it's
Mhm.
an algorithm. It's not a political thing. And our money supply is we got to take the politics out of the money supply and leave it up to the algorithm. And if we got to redistribute wealth, let's go do that. But let's not screw with the calendar or the money supply.
Mhm. So, in terms of, as you mentioned, right, you mentioned quantitative easing, where money is printed to just put more money into circulation.
Yeah.
Something like blockchain and obviously crypto, which is built on top of blockchain, that could help put in some checks and balances, because even though we all talk a lot about the crypto scams, etc., but those are becoming increasingly rare these days because everything can be traced. And in all honesty, the trail of money is easier to follow when it is on chain versus it's just in banks or in cash. So it also introduces, I feel, that layer of responsibility, because now it's transparent, it's on chain, it's on public blockchain, so you can see how that money is flowing. So I love that perspective, Greg. I appreciate that. Now, moving on to because we just have a little time left, I want to actually cover even the AI aspect of what's happening, right? We had Trump, we had basically our federal government announce $500 billion of investment into AI to bolster the AI startups and further the adoption of AI, trying to ensure that AI, US especially when it comes to AI dominance, stays that way. And after this was announced, we also saw DeepSeek really shake up the US market, and $1 trillion overall were lost from the stock market. So we know that the threat to AI is absolutely real, and there is a race going on, at least between China and the US, to establish AI dominance. But then we have so many countries just working in secret. So now my question to you is, obviously, we have also seen the government issue or resigned some of the Biden administration EOs to make it more pro AI. But it also seems that at the moment that growth is supposed to be a little unchecked, because there were some EUs around establishing kind of ethic boards, or some regulatory putting in place some regulatory guardrails, and those EUs were also resigned. So what do you think is going to happen over the next 4 years? Because in the AI space, 4 years is really a long time at the rate at which it is growing. So, what do you envision happening? Do you think people will self-regulate, or do you think this was a little too extreme? We still need to, let AI grow, as you said, unhindered, but there should be some guardrails in place.
Yeah. So just to let you know, during the summertime last year, I was very involved in the SB 1047. It was Senate Bill 1047, which was legislation here in California to basically regulate AI. And so I was on the other side. I was basically campaigning against it. And United States, like for the past 100 years or so, ever since World War II, we've been the technology leader. It's important that we stay that way because there's a lot of other countries that don't have our standard of living that are very envious of our country. And if we didn't have this dominance in technology, we would really be in trouble. So I think it's a bit of a race. It's a little bit like the space race back when the Soviet Union and the United States were trying to race to see who could land on the moon first. I think we're at that kind of moment. Kind of like the Sputnik moment. I think DeepSeek was a Sputnik moment, right? Where people thought that, oh, we're so far ahead in AI versus China, but it's not true, right? The DeepSeek model, if you read the paper, is actually very innovative, right? I mean, they have things like in there where they're training at 8 bits instead of 16 bits, and then they would, accumulate the. So I think it's critical that we stay ahead and that we stay at the forefront of this technology, because I think it's probably one of the biggest technology revolutions right now. I mean, certainly of my lifetime. I remember reading about how the Ottoman Empire, so way back when the Ottoman Empire, they decided to ban the printing press, right? Because they thought it was dangerous technology. They thought it would spread dangerous ideas, right? Because suddenly, rather than just, an official who could write it, it would be like some random dude who could print whatever they felt like. And so they banned it. They restricted the use of printing presses. Not that they couldn't, not the Ottoman Empire couldn't do a printing press. They had it actually. And in Europe, of course, they didn't have that, right? They had the printing press, and it started the Renaissance, right? And then if you look at, one of the things that contributed to the fall of the Ottoman Empire was certainly not having the printing press, right? Europe rose and Ottoman Empire fell. And I think for our country as well, if we decide to highly regulate or ban it, I think we run the risk of becoming like the Ottoman Empire. I think instead we want to be like the Renaissance. We want to have the Renaissance here, right? Although there's a lot of fear from AI doomers about AI, there has yet to be a really concrete harm that AI has caused, right? So, and that's the one thing I didn't like about SB 1047 was that regulate. Okay, so first of all, if you use any technology, whether it's AI or anything else, to do something nefarious, there's laws against it already. But this was the first law about math, right? So basically, if you did too much computation, suddenly, you as a software developer could go to prison, right? It was like an algorithm, like math would be illegal, right? And so it made no sense, right? And for whatever harms that AI could do, there's already laws against it. So I think that okay, I'll give you an example. So like in Palo Alto, my colleagues, I didn't vote for this. My colleagues decided to ban electric bikes, okay, on the park trails because they said they go too fast or they can go too fast. But my point was, no, we shouldn't ban the electric bikes. We should ban the speed of the bikes because, like, I have an electric bike. I built it myself, but I use it to pull a trailer when I go to Costco. I buy stuff and put it in my trailer. And so it's not a fast bike because it has the gear ratio for being able to pull a heavy load. I can't go very fast, but now it's banned in Palo Alto. But really, it's like this. Rather than like for cars, they don't ban electric car versus gas car. What they do is they ban the speed of the car. So you ban the dangerous use of it, not the
General use of
not,
it.
not the
Yeah.
technology, but like the SB 1047 was banning math. They literally banned like if you had 10 to the whatever number of operations, you're banned. And it's like, wait a second, no. If you slander someone, that's banned. If you rob a bank, if you do bad things, there's laws for it already, and you should be punished for it. But just doing a certain number of math operations, what the hell, right? Since when should math be banned? That doesn't make sense.
Yes, and especially with quantum computing literally on the verge of a breakout, we are definitely going to see that happen in our lifetimes. Something like this would just kill quantum computing. because quantum computing is made for 10 to the power of like infinite magnitude, I'm going to say. It's made for that computational force, and it's already in practice, but obviously it needs a lot of resources at the moment, so we haven't seen mainstream adoption, but it is coming faster than we can envision. Well, Greg, it was really a pleasure chatting with you. Before we wrap up the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1550 AM, I would love to just ask you to leave our audiences with a message. So if people want to learn more about these things that are happening, is there anything in particular that you are actually pursuing and working on? How can they learn about it? And also, where can they follow you?
Sure, yeah. So I'm really into AI and crypto. The best way to follow me is actually on X. So just Greg Tanaka, just one word. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me or message me on X, and happy to chat. And if you're looking for good people to follow in AI, you can also look at my who I follow, and those are good people to learn about what's going on. And I also follow a lot of crypto people. So if you're looking for a good set of AI crypto people, check out my X profile, and you could, follow the people that you like.
Thank you, Greg. So again, guys, Greg is active on Twitter, X, as we know it now. Greg Tanaka, that's GregTanaka. You can find him on Twitter under that handle. And with that, folks, we would love to wrap up the segment of the Silicon Dreams. We'll see you next Monday with more conversations. Until then, Jia.